right, good morning, everyone. I hope you all are having a good day. So before we jump into class, which class today is going to be pretty chill, just wanted to go over briefly the career fair. So, as you probably know, Paul and I, we both want all of you to get good jobs. All right, we want you to have a job lined up by the time you graduate. Okay, so April 7th, if you're still searching for a job, this will be a great opportunity. Certainly if you're having any questions about your resume, anything like that, bring it to office hour. I certainly hold office hours. I'm certainly happy to go over it with you. Email it to me. Have someone else look over it. All right. I'll let you all read all this. I'm not going to read it, but it's certainly going to be available on April 7th. I think you got to do some stuff beforehand. Let's see. Does that interfere with my class? I think it does. We'll probably let out early that day. Does that sound good? Not a big deal. I don't even know what we're doing that day. It's probably not as important as getting a job, though. Is that fair to say? All right. Like I say, if you all get good jobs, that's a very good thing. Similar note, if you want to, once you graduate, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You don't have to, but feel free to. In a couple years' time, who knows? I might be reaching out to you for being a guest speaker. You can say no to that, of course, in a couple of years, but we'll see. So, any questions? Like I say, I didn't read this. I'll send it out via email, though. Speaking of emails, did I send out an email? I thought about sending one out. Did I send one out about a lab tomorrow? Huh. I was pretty busy in office hours, not going to lie. So I guess I forgot to do it. So I'll go ahead and say it, and then I'll also send out an email while you guys are working. So, lab tomorrow, we're going to go over the project for 352. And then on Friday, we're going to do just a little bit of stuff in Active Directory. And then the future labs from here on out, they're all going to be in Kali Linux. Does that sound good to everyone? It's not really this class, but let's face it, you guys are all in the other class anyway. So, all right, questions before we begin. All righty. So let's jump over to Canvas. I'll tell you what, I was grading today in Canvas, and Speed Grader is the slowest thing ever. It takes 10, 15 seconds to load an assignment. So you're doing 30. That's 10, 15 minutes you're wasting. And I really felt like I was limited by the technology of our time. All right. So that's a real bummer. But Canvas is what we have. So let's go ahead and look at the project groups, see who's working with whom. You don't get to pick your groups in this class. It's not really anything I have control over either. So make of that what you will. So here's the groups. You all can read. So that's who you'll be working with. I'm going to go over the project, just kind of go through it. Then what I'll do is I'll let you guys work on the project, get started. I personally recommend that you go through and you kind of divvy up the tasks and you decide how you're going to communicate. I don't necessarily want you all to work on this over spring break, but if you have nothing better to do over spring break, whatever. It's up to you all whenever you work on it. Okay, we have about 3 or 4 work days in total, so not a lot of work days. Some of this you'll probably have to do on your own time. All right, I apologize for that, but there's a lot of content we want to get through. Also, another announcement. I posted progress grades. I don't think anyone will be dissatisfied with their project grade. Like I say, most of the labs up to this point have been participation grades, right? So if you came to class and you participated, you got 100, correct? If you're dissatisfied with your grade for any reason, maybe you think it was unfair or I don't know, feel free to speak with me after class. I'm happy to go over that. Although personally, I don't think anyone could be dissatisfied with their grade, but if you are, feel free to speak with me. All right, these are the groups. Any questions about them? Everyone knows They're group mates. You all probably know each other. All right. So, you had your group number. Everyone remembers their group number, right? Okay, so your group number corresponds with this firm's. Okay, so I made up 3 firms. They might have some relation to some stuff in real life. So the first firm, who's group number 1? All right, Patrick. Okay, so Patrick's and Lee and yeah. So you guys are doing this Burns company. Okay. So what I did is I gave you a budget. Okay, so this is not me actually giving you $500,000. Okay, don't take that the wrong way. But you have a theoretical budget, and you have your specifications there. So I'm not going to read them all off, but you can tell that you're a national department store chain that's similar to Sears. All right. I guess the difference is you still have some locations that are open. So anyway, that's what you're doing there. All right. So who's group number 2? All right, Sydney and Nick. Who else? Okay. Yeah. So you guys are doing River. Okay. So River is a national department store or not national department chain like Amazon. Okay. But they don't have AWS. Okay. So they're just like an online retailer basically. You guys have a much larger budget. $5 million. All right. You don't have to spend it all. Okay. If you can do it for $250 and you think it will be able to satisfy these requirements, do it for $250. Now, having said that, one thing that I'll note, you're going to have to look into whichever SQL server you end up using. Okay. Maybe you end up sticking with PostgreSQL. Maybe you end up deciding Oracle is the way to go. I'm not going to have my bias in this, okay? So whatever you select, you're going to have to look in and see how much resources you need. And then you're going to price out the servers based on that. Does that make sense? And I have information we're going to go over in a little bit. But you're going to read through that, and then that's going to be the basis of your project. You guys understand? All right. Group 3. Who's group 3? Ron, okay. So you got Robert's Rentals. All right, small independent rental company owned by Robert. All right, hence the name Robert. Okay, so they got 400 units. Not a very big company, 10 employees. That's probably actually a tad high. All right, you guys got a $50,000 budget. Okay, because right now they're losing $5,000 a month in unpaid rent and vacant properties that Robert forgot about. All right, how you forget about that? I don't know, but he did. All right, so you're going to address that problem. You understand? Questions so far? Anyone confused? All right. So, talked about who is in each group. Talked about what each group is presenting. The last part is talking about the actual project itself. All right. So I've got a project description and rubric file. Okay. I don't like using Canvas, so I'm gonna open this up in a different. Here we go. Just much better. All right. So I'm not going to read this entire thing, but basically, the first part you got to do a presentation component. Okay, so you're going to spend 20 to 30 minutes presenting. I expect a good business presentation. All right. Each of you in here are all graduating, if not this semester, very soon. Okay, so you've done an entire business curriculum. You should be able to come up here and give a good presentation. All right. Is that fair to say? So some good presentation tips. Make sure you take notes. All right. Okay. Don't ever have a lot of information on your slides. Okay. What I mean by that is, you've probably seen slides where they're using size like 20 and they have, multiple paragraphs. Okay. Never do that. All right. Think about the slides I use. All right. If I'm grading you, is it fair to say that I like my own slides? Yeah. I don't put a lot of information on my slides. A good rule of thumb. No more than 6 bullet points, and no more than 6 words per bullet point. And that's a max. Okay, you don't want to go above that. All right, now if you do once or twice, Not the end of the world. But let's say you want to have 7 or 8 bullet points on a slide. What should you do? Exactly right. Okay, so split it in half. Half on the first slide, half on the second slide. Okay, you don't ever want to read off the slides. All right, this might be a review, and hopefully it is a review. But it'd be very bad practice to read off the slides. Why is that a bad practice? Why do we not want to do that? So it could be unprepared. What else, though? So, you might have your back turned. That's a bad thing as well. You want to make good eye contact. You want to ensure that you're projecting your voice clearly. Just be blunt. It's boring. And if someone's reading something off word for word, you've got it in front of you. Let's face it, you can read text a lot quicker than you can hear text. Is that fair to say? So you're boring people. Okay, I don't want to be bored. You guys don't want to be bored. Make an interesting presentation. All right, why not throw some graphics on there? Maybe you can, maybe you won't. Not a big deal if you don't, but you certainly want to ensure that you're covering everything that you did for the project. So, just to recap, okay, don't be boring. Don't have too much text on your slides. Ensure that you're making good eye contact, making sure that you're, not just using a bunch of filler words over and over like those sort of things. Okay, any other questions about what makes a good presentation? All right. So, hopefully, you all have covered business presentations at some point in your curriculum. I don't think we actually have a business communications class. Okay, I'm not sure. Do we have a business communications class? If we do, it's not a requirement. Personally, I think that's a vital skill. Be able to communicate in an effective way for business professionals. Because you have written communication. That's vital, okay? You have presentation communication. That's vital. Putting information for marketing. That's vital. I guess you probably cover some of that in marketing, but you all see the point there, okay? I'm getting off on a tangent. All right, so the business report. This is a big part of what you're doing. Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're making a business report. So you're going to start off with an executive summary. You're summarizing the company, you're summarizing the problem that you faced, and then you're saying this is what we propose. The remainder of this report comprises of information about how we propose going about addressing this, that sort of thing. That's an executive summary. It's going to be about a page long, several different paragraphs. All right, so you're not just summarizing the firm, you're summarizing the problem as well. You're summarizing what you proposed for the solution. You're summarizing the entire document, in other words. After the executive summary, you're going to have a table of contents. All right, so you guys know how to make a table of contents, right? So in Word, use the headings and make sure that you format them appropriately because I don't want anything other than Times New Roman 12 point. All right, make sure you write that down. Nothing but Times New Roman 12 point for the business report. All right, why do I love Times New Roman 12 point? I don't know, but I do, okay? So accordingly, make sure everything inside the business report is Times New Roman 12 point. Now, in the slides, okay, should you do Times New Roman 12 point? Absolutely not. That'd be way too small, okay? Don't go below size 28. Ideally, stick to size 32 or greater. Size 28 for the slides is the absolute minimum I'll accept, though. All right, so like I said, make sure you're building out everything with a table of contents. Okay? Now, what size font should the headings be? For the business report. So everything should be what size? 12 point, what font? Times New Roman. Even the headings. You can bold them. Don't make them any larger. All right. So then your next section is going to be this description of the problem. Okay, so you're going to break down the problem. You're going to basically give a good analysis of it. It's probably going to take you at least 2 or 3 paragraphs to really describe what the firm is currently using and why that's a problem. All right, so you're given all that information inside of the outline that you were previously that we previously went over. All right, you guys saw that? Okay. Once you've discussed the problem, your next section is going to be solution. Doesn't do a whole lot of good to just talk about problems all day, does it? All right. You're going to come up with different solutions for the problem. All right. So, 3 major options. Okay. Your first solution, sticking with the current system. Okay. That's probably not going to be the best solution, is it? Okay. You don't need any quotes for that first solution, which is doing nothing. Okay? So, we're going to talk about quotes in a little bit. I don't mean someone said something, we quote it. Okay? I mean a price quote. Your second solution is using an on-premises database. Okay? So, that would be you going out, you're getting quotes for server equipment, you're getting quotes for networking equipment, and you're also getting quotes for any sort of stuff with a server rack, any sort of uninterruptible power supply, all that information. You're getting quotes for everything. I should be able to get your quote, and I should be able to purchase all the equipment, and I should be able to have a functional database for an organization. All right? So we've gone over what we need for redundancy. Okay? So, let's review. What do we need for redundancy? Exactly right. Okay, so if you're getting a server rack, well, a server rack doesn't really break. Okay, let's be honest. Probably stick with one server rack. But at the bottom of the server rack, what are we getting 2 of? Uninterruptible power supplies, exactly right. Okay, I would recommend sizing them a little bit larger than what the equipment would demand. All right, moving up the rack. Okay, we have our servers. You're going to get at minimum 2 servers that can adequately handle the load. You may end up getting far more than that depending on what database you need, but you're going to have a minimum of 2 servers. Okay? Then you're going to have a minimum of 2 what? Switches. Exactly right. Okay? I would say that's probably adequate. All right? Questions so far? Now, when I say that's probably adequate, I mean that's probably adequate in terms of what you're going to quote. You may end up needing 20 or 30 servers. I don't know. Okay, each group has a different project. So some groups, like I think Sydney's group, Sydney, your budget's 50 grand, right? Okay, 5 million. Who's 50 grand? Okay. So Ron, you're not going to have 30 or 40 servers, right? But you're going to have to balance getting everything within that 50 grand budget. That might be a bit of a challenge. Might not. You price out 2 modest servers. All you're running is 400 properties in the database. That's probably not going to need a ton of power, right? Rack's probably going to run you, let's just say, 2,500. Okay, your UPSs are probably going to run you, I don't know, let's say 5 to 10 grand. Okay, your server license for using SQL Server, okay, or whatever SQL Server you end up using, that's probably going to run you another, I would say around 10 to 15 grand. Okay, so you're left with about half the budget, roughly, for the servers and the switches. Okay, switches are going to be pretty inexpensive for Ron's group, right? You don't need a whole lot of features when you just have a handful of servers. All right. Sydney, you got the 5 million? That's going to be a lot of equipment, isn't it? Okay, you probably have a lot that you're doing. Okay? You guys are doing the fake Amazon, right? Good luck. Okay? So that's going to be a lot of transactions. You're not going to be able to do it with 2 servers. All right? Lee, You got the 500,000? What's your company? Burns, all right? You guys know what that's based on, right? Comes from Sears. I don't want to use actual company names. So yeah, you're going to be somewhere in the middle of those two. I think 500,000 is a good budget to work with. I think you'll be able to easily be well below that, but we'll see. All right, so on-premise. So with on-premise, you're getting all the physical hardware. You're also getting the software licenses. Does that make sense? Is anyone confused? All right, cloud database. Okay, so what you're doing is you're getting 3 quotes for on-premise. You're getting 3 quotes for cloud database. For each of those quotes, you're going to provide a paragraph describing it. Okay, so you're describing what benefits you'd receive from it, why it is or is not a feasible option. Okay, so you're going to put those quotes inside of an appendix as well. All right, so everyone understands that, right? So you're pulling down the quotes. We're going to talk about those quotes in a little bit. But for now, just understand you're getting them, you're saving them, probably as a PDF of some sort. And then once you finish, you're plopping them all into the appendix, making sure that you're labeling them with solution X. So if it's solution number 2, okay, what's solution number 2 going to be? Okay, so what is solution number 1? Don't do anything. So what's solution number 2? On site. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You're labeling it as solution X, and then quote whatever quote number. So you're going to have 3 quotes for on-premise. You're going to have 3 quotes for cloud. Is everyone with me? Those go where? In the appendix. All right. So I give you some places to get some quotes. All right. So for the on-premise, I recommend using Dell, HP Enterprise, CDW, Lenovo, that sorts of places. All right. Don't go to some place like Newegg. All right. They're not really an enterprise vendor. So then for the database quote, you're going to go to places like Oracle, Microsoft, Postgre, etc. Have more information we're going to cover in the appendix. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. All right. So I'm going to be honest, okay? Obtaining enterprise quotes is not easy. It takes a lot of time, and I don't want you to be spending a bunch of time dealing with a bunch of salespeople. Just being blunt. I think there's a lot better ways you can spend your time. So what I suggest you do for the hardware, go to the enterprise vendor's website. Okay, so go to CDW, go to HP Enterprise. Fill up a cart with what you think you need. Okay, and you're going to get the hardware needs from where? Where do you get the hardware needs? How do I know if I need 40 cores or 4,000 cores? What tells me that? Okay, so you're going to go first, you're going to figure out what software you need. And you're going to research for this application, for this SQL Server, and the number of transactions and the amount of records we believe we'll have, we believe this is the approximate hardware needs. Okay, so that's all software defined. Does that make sense? All right. So it's going to vary by SQL Server. All right. PostgreSQL is very efficient. You know, doesn't take a lot to run a PostgreSQL server and to do a lot of transactions. All right. If for whatever reason you want to use MySQL Server, that's not very efficient at all, is it? Okay. Let's say you wanted to use MariaDB for some reason. Okay. That's going to be more efficient than MySQL Server, even though they're based on the same stuff. So you're going to have to figure that out. All right, that's part of the project. All right. Now, you know, in enterprise B2B, no one ever pays the list price for anything. Okay, if you pay the list price for anything, in enterprise B2B sales, okay, you're a sucker. Does that make sense? Don't be a sucker. All right? So what I've suggested, and these are approximate figures. For the hardware, if you have spend it under 100 grand on the hardware, take 25% off the total. Does that make sense? If you're spending under $1 million, take 32% off the total. Okay, if you're spending over $1 million, take 40% off the total. Those are approximations, but they're about what you would expect to not pay. All right? So questions about that? Does everyone understand? So you're just filling up a cart, okay? You're not dealing with any salespeople here. All right, because if you're dealing with salespeople, believe me, okay? I've done this many times. They're going to spin you around, and then they're going to keep bugging you for like months on end, all right? So like I said, you're going to be working weeks and weeks on this. Just fill up a cart. Okay, I'm not trying to overload you with getting quotes, all right? This is pretty close to what you would see in enterprise. It's not exact. There's going to be a lot of variation. That's pretty close, though. Questions? All right, so for software, it's going to be quite similar. All right? In fact, you're probably going to have to start with software. Why? Okay? Tells you your hardware requirements. Exactly right. Okay? So no matter what you end up doing, even if you have a $50,000 budget, all right, you're going to have to get a support contract. That's a requirement. All right, you can use free and open source software, but you're going to have to get a support contract for it. Okay, that's an important thing because when you're using something for commercial use, you run into an issue. Is it not good to be able to pick up the phone and call someone who that's all they do? That's very good. All right. So you're always getting the support contract. So just go to the different applications. You're not going to have to deal with a salesperson for this either. You're going to be able to basically have the pricing done on the website. It's going to give it to you. All right, so is anyone confused by that? I know it's a lot of information. Anything I need to repeat, explain a different way, anything at all? All right, that's the quotes part, okay? Yeah. So we're assuming we already have the property in the room to put it. We're also assuming we already have the HVAC and all that stuff. It'd just be more complicated to get all that, and it doesn't really add a lot of benefit. We're assuming we have ample circuits. So basically, you're to the point of having basically a warm site. Okay, so everything is ready to be installed, but you don't have a server rack yet. Okay, you don't have UPSs yet. However, you have the power available to them. Okay, you do have the ability to get networking into it, but you don't yet have switches for the rack. Okay, so that's the point that you're at. That's a good question. Ron, did you have a question earlier? Okay. Well, if you think about it, certainly let me know. All right, Patrick. So I believe that they're just going to be during the final exam day in here. So you'll have the ability to look on that screen, just to glance at it, not to read from it, but keep your pace, that sort of thing. You kind of cheat, you kind of look over there, point to stuff, Same thing I do. Sydney. I don't know that I specified it. Personally, I'm more of a single space kind of guy. But a lot of people prefer double space. Okay. I don't like to move my eyes that much. Okay, I'd rather just be able to slightly move them rather than like jar them down and whatever. Whatever works. If I didn't specify it, you have a lot of freedom on it. Okay, if I do specify it, you don't have a lot of freedom. Any other questions before we move on? Ron. Yeah. No. So the X is a placeholder for solution 2 or solution 3. And then quote X is going to be like quote 1, 2, or 3 for the given solution number. Other questions? All right, so again, you're going to break down all this information in the solution description, and then you're going to provide a recommendation. Okay, so the recommendation, this is where you're going to discuss the feasibility of options 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so for options 2 and 3, what you're doing is you've already said, I think this quote is the best to go with. Here's why I think that. So you're only having the 3 options. Okay, you're not discussing the different quotes in the recommendation. Does that make sense? Because you've already discussed which of the 3 quotes is best. All right, so you're going to provide justification. Okay, the justification is important. So I'll leave that up to you as to what you do there. All right, now you might be thinking up to this point, haven't even really talked about database stuff, have we? Well, that's going to change. All right, so you got some diagrams you're doing. Okay, so you're doing an ERD for how you would model data for the firm. You have a ton of flexibility there. Follow the ERD best practices, make it logical, and you're going to have a paragraph describing each of the relationships. All right, you may have to do multiple paragraphs depending on how complex your data models are. Then you're going to give me first, second, and third normal form. So yes, make sure you do that. Then you're going to have 3 mock input forms, and you're also going to have 3 mock reports that the firm may use. All right. So again, you've got the specifications there, attractive and easy to understand. Provide a paragraph for each one describing how they would be used by the organization. All right, pretty good so far. Okay, so next, based on the diagram, probably the ERD, you're going to give me a data dictionary. Okay, so data dictionary, simple way of saying you're having a table that describes each of your tables. All right, so this is going to be sectioned off by your different tables. And you're basically listing each of the columns that you have inside the table. Okay, you're defining it. You're giving a definition of what it is, maybe even how it's used. You're going to have the data type on there. And any other sort of constraints you may have, like if it's a primary key, if it's not null, if it has any sort of data validation on it, anything like that. Okay, so finally, we get to the fun stuff, the actual SQL. Okay, so just like we've done on lab, was it 3 or 4? I don't even remember the lab numbers in here. Everyone did fine on them, so no worries. All right, whatever the lab is that we did the SQL. Okay, we did create statements for each of the tables. All right, so you're going to start off with that. Then you're going to give me insert into statements, where you're inserting at least 5 rows of data into each table. You can do more, but no fewer than 5. Okay, and then for the third step, you're going to give me 10 query statements you believe the firm would use. All right, and what you're doing is you give me 2 sentences for each to justify both why and how the firm may use them. All right, questions about that? Okay, and then finally, you got the appendix. The appendix is at the end. It just has the 6 quotes labeled appropriately and anything else you may need to stick inside the appendix. I don't know what that would be, but I'll leave that up to your groups. All right. So you got your presentation slides. I'm not going to nitpick on what you do with them other than just follow the basic rules of good business presentations. Okay? You're going to have a title slide, you're going to have an intro slide, and then you're having at least 1 slide to cover everything from the report. Okay? You're probably going to need a lot more than 1 slide for different parts of the report, but that's sort of the minimum. Does that make sense? All right, and then finally, you're going to present. We've already talked about that. So here's the rubric. A little bit sneaky of me, isn't it? Okay, look at the grammar. Okay, I expect these to have good grammar. You're not getting points for having good grammar. However, if you put more than 3 mistakes in the entire report, look at that. Your grade gets multiplied by 0.9, okay? If you put 12 or more mistakes, your grade gets multiplied by 0.7. All right, is that a little bit sneaky of me? A little bit. That's how I do it. All right, so to get the full credit for the presentation, do an excellent business presentation. To get the full credit for the executive summary, give me an excellent summary of the firm and the case. Again, a good executive summary should be about how long? About a page, probably single space. It should be a couple paragraphs minimum. All right, don't give me one paragraph and say that's a good executive summary. Okay, because you're not describing everything inside the report in one paragraph, are you? You're not. All right, this is an important concept. It's 30 points of your grade. Okay, problem, solution, and description. Okay, so here is where I have all that stuff where you pulled down the different problems and you analyzed it. That's 30% of your grade. Okay, so that's getting all the quotes, that's analyzing the quotes, that's saying what's best and why. So you're going to be very logical there. You're going to be well researched. You're going to be very, very on top of things. All right, next is your recommendation. Okay, so your recommendation is where you go through and you say, I believe that the cloud-hosted platform is the best for our company because X, Y, Z. The others are inadequate for our company because whatever reasons you have. 10% of your grade. Diagrams, all right? I don't think I need to say too much about diagrams. If I see a lot of problems with the diagrams, you're not getting those 10 points, are you? Okay, you're going to get less than the 10 points. All right? What are some problems I may see with an ERD, for instance? Okay? So if I see cardinalities that are completely illogical, and you don't explain why you did it that way, I can certainly see myself counting off there. What else? How about if your attribute names don't match your columns? Is that a problem? It's a problem. How about if you have unaddressed many-to-many relationships? Is that a problem? That's a problem. How about if you have a relationship and on neither side do you include a foreign key? Is that a problem? That'd be a problem. How about if you don't include primary and foreign keys at all? That's a very big problem. Okay, that might be getting 3 out of 10 just for that. I think you all did a good job with the ERD. I'm not actually worried about this. Okay, I think everyone's going to get, well, I hope everyone's going to get a 10. All right? Well, let me rephrase it. I hope everyone gets a 10 on this section, not a 10 on the project, okay? That would be a very bad thing, would it not? Okay, so data dictionary. All right, have a good and logical data dictionary. Make sure that your columns in the data dictionary, that they match your diagrams, so they're going to match your attributes exactly, no spelling differences, and also, what should they match? Starts with a C. So they should match the create statements as well, right? This is vital, okay? It's easy to make a mistake. You have at least 3 people in your group. Check each other's work. Because guess what? I'll check your work. Wouldn't it be better to have you check your own work before I check it? All right, then you got SQL statements. Give me good SQL statements. That's 10% of the grade. All right. So, I also have a note on here. I don't think it's going to apply in this class. I really hope not. If it does, I'll have bigger problems. But here's the thing. I reserve the right to deduct points if your team members approach me and they unanimously say you didn't do any work. Okay? You won't earn anything. Okay? He who does not work shall not eat. Okay? If I give you a 0 on this project, you're not going to pass the class. This is 50% of your grade. All right? So, having said that, Make sure you do what you say you will do. All right? A couple minutes, we're going to break up into our groups, and you guys are going to go through each of these tasks, and I suggest you assign a task to everyone. All right? That's what I suggest you do. And I suggest you all decide, how are you going to meet? When are you going to meet? These are things I strongly suggest. Exchange cell phone numbers if you guys don't already have each other's cell phone numbers. Email addresses, whatever you guys communicate with. All right? That's my suggestions to you. Now, having said that, I don't think it's fair for me to say 50% of your grade you're going to get on the last day of class. Okay, that would be pretty harsh, would it not? So let's look at the schedule, and let's together decide what sort of milestones you all want. What sort of milestones do you all want? Do you all want me to give like a 10% of the grade? Or do you all just want me to give feedback on the review day, or not the review days, but the work days? What do you all want? Okay. And I prefer that to grades as well, personally. Personal opinion there. Is that good with everyone? Okay. So, here's what I'm going to do then. All right. I host office hours every day of the week. Well, every work day of the week. I don't host them on Saturday and Sunday, obviously. So, if you have any questions about anything, if something's unclear, I know there's a lot of stuff here. I know some of it, like data dictionary, we haven't really talked about. Okay, getting quotes, we haven't really talked about that either. Okay, feel free to come visit me during office hours. Feel free to email me. Okay, also on work days, feel free to, have me look over stuff. I'm happy to give feedback. All right, if you're confused about part of it, anything like that. Okay, don't get to the last day and say I'm lost. Is that fair? Ron. That's a great question. So the solution, what you're doing is you have the problem. Okay, so you've already described the problem. The solution is saying, these are potential things we could do to solve the problem. So the first thing you're going to do is say, do nothing. And you're going to describe what that would do for the organization. And it would be also a very short paragraph, because you basically say, we would continue operations as is with our current system or lack of system, depending on which group you have. And that will have adverse effects to this degree, that sort of thing. Your second thing you're going to do is go through each of the different quotes for one premise. So each paragraph is going to, or each quote is going to have a paragraph. Okay? And you're describing the quote and how it may fit in with the organization. Okay, at the end of that, at the end of those three paragraphs, what you're doing is you're saying, based on this information, you're going to say, we believe that, quote, X is the best for our company because it has the lowest cost or it has the best reputation, whatever reason. Okay, I'm not saying you should base everything on cost. All right, you're going to come up with logical reasons why you believe that quote's the best. Okay, then finally, you're doing the same thing for the third solution, which is the cloud vendors. All right, so you're breaking down your three quotes you got from the cloud vendors, and you're doing the exact same thing. So it's going to be ditto, ditto, okay? Based on this information, we believe that, quote, X is the best cloud option for our company. That's your solution. Your recommendation is you're saying number 1, number 2, or number 3, which is the best for a company and why. All right, so you're not touching the individual quotes at this point. You've already done that in the problem. So what you're doing here is you're saying, based upon our organizational factors, including size, budget, internal employment resources, those sorts of things, we believe that option number 3 or option number 2 is the best for a company. Specifically, we believe its operational cost will be X amount lower, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's when you're actually picking option 1, 2, or 3, and you're describing why and how it's the best. Great question, Ron. Does that answer it? So yeah, you're going to discuss the feasibility of doing nothing. That's just going to be very brief. Okay, then you're going to discuss the feasibility of doing on-premise, and you're going to discuss the feasibility number 3. That's going to be all very brief, and then you're going to say what you believe is the best. So number 2 on here is going to be probably the most important part of this, okay? Because you've already done a lot of that on the section directly preceding that. Is that good, Ron? Any other questions? All right, like I said, take this seriously, but also take seriously the career fair. All right, I'm going to send out information to you all about that. Like I said, do attend it. Do prepare for it. Make sure you dress well for it. Don't show up in blue jeans and a t-shirt or something, you know. Dress well for it. You know, consider wearing a suit. I would say at minimum, wear dress pants and a button down. But hey, I'm not your mother. I don't tell you what to wear. Your mother probably doesn't tell you what to wear anymore either. Okay? So, like I said, you know, if you have any questions as you go, which you probably will, okay, definitely feel free to approach me. Okay? Be it after class, be it before class, be it during office hours, be it email, whatever you need. Okay, is that fair? All right. Go ahead and end the recording, and then I will let